Welcome back to Boss Hogs Cooking. This is video 2, 40-day dry aged ribeye roast versus a prime ribeye roast. To start off, what we did was we took the prime ribeye roast that has been in the refrigerator for 40 days, dry aging. If you notice the color, it's a little bit darker. We've taken it out and we've made 2-inch steaks, 2-inch cuts down the entire prime rib. What we're doing here is we're just trying to make sure we get steaks that are between 16 to 22 ounces. As we cut these steaks, what we're cutting through is the dry aged pellicle. This pellicle is what forms on the outside of the meat as it starts to dry age in the refrigerator. That dry age process is what it's doing is it's removing the moisture and kind of concentrating the flavors in the roast. A little tough to get through, but with a really good sharp knife, makes it very, very simple. Just taking a look at those, if you notice the color, the redness in the meat is a lot more concentrated, lot deeper color. That's just again letting you know that the process has worked properly. The dry aging has worked great, and you're gonna have some wonderful, wonderful meat. If you notice there, what I did is I just smelt the meat. Your nose has been trained for human noses have been trained for millions and millions of years to let you know exactly if the process has worked properly. If you smell anything off or something that doesn't smell just quite right, you know that maybe you've had some issues with your process. But these steaks look wonderful, they smell wonderful, and yeah, hopefully we'll have some great steaks a little later on in the video. What you see us doing now is we're going ahead and we're weighing the steaks. We're making sure that each one of these steaks is around 18 to 22 ounces. What we want to make sure there is when we do store these, because we vacuum sealed them, that we're putting the steaks together that are of about equal size. Now in the process, what we're doing is here we're cutting the just regular prime rib roast. This is beautiful, beautiful meat as well. Prime, beautiful, beautiful cuts. Again, we're making them about 2 inches a piece. Hopefully with a 2-inch cut, we'll have right around 16 to 18 ounces of steak. Beautiful marbling on this meat as well. So noticing right here, what we have is we have the end of the ribeye roast. Unfortunately, when I measured from one side to the other, and it left me a little bit extra of a piece on the end. I still got my final steak out of there, but I have a little bit extra ribeye left over on the edge, and that's not enough for a steak. At least not the kind of steaks we eat here. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and chop that up. You'll notice I'll put those edgings in a bag, chop them up into squares, and what we'll do is grind those up and make hamburgers with it. So yeah, we're going ahead and going through that process of chopping it up, making it little cute pieces. We put them in the freezer, take them out maybe a day before we do the grind, and that video will probably be coming up soon. We'll take them out, put them in the grinder. I also add about a little bit of brisket fat, and also when we're doing the trimmings later on of the dry aged ribeye, we used a little bit of that ribeye fat as well for the ground beef and the hamburgers. So that's my bag, just throwing them in there, making sure everything is sealed up nice, taking the air out of the bag. That's a little trick that I've learned as well. When you put things in the freezer, you want to make sure you don't have any air in the bag. Make sure you get all the air out and try to get all the Ziploc and get the Ziploc kind of tightened up nice and tidy. Look at that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful prime steaks. Moving on, what we're doing here is we're going ahead and trimming not only the aged ribeye, but we're also trimming the prime as well. Here you just want to take off the outside edge of that pellicle. I have my fillet knife trying to get as closest to the edge because again, I mean you've taken the time. You've aged the steak, you've babied it, you've watched it, and what you don't want to do now is cut off too much of that great flavorful beautiful steak. You just want to get the edges off because of course that portion of the steak does not taste very good. So just going around trying to get as closest to the edge as possible and making sure we take off any parts that are browned or don't look don't look as tasty or like a natural steak. Beautiful, beautiful. And I'll tell you something, handling these steaks, these dry aged steaks, in my hands, it's nothing like a normal ribeye. The steaks, I mean, they're super soft, very supple. If you notice the grease on those black gloves, that grease is just rendering so smooth. Perfect. Now we have both of the steaks trimmed up, our regular prime and our aged ribeyes. If you notice on those ribeyes, we're trying to get it as closest to the edge as possible without taking away too much of the actual steak, but still getting a uniform design. So a uniform design. So when we do go ahead and cook these, that they'll cook evenly. We're gonna go ahead and start the seasoning process. Of course, with a dry aged steak, you really want to taste the meat. That's what you've been working on. That's what you've been trying to make sure that you get an end result or an end process. So what we want to do is we don't want to mask that flavor with a lot of additional seasonings. We're gonna go real simple. We're gonna go salt, pepper, and a little bit of garlic salt on the regular prime. Other than that, we're gonna leave them pretty standard. We'll start on one side with the salt, the pepper, and then we'll go ahead and flip and salt, pepper, and use garlic salt on the prime at the top. That's the garlic salt right there. We'll go ahead and pat. Make sure we're getting all those seasonings into the steaks. Flip and repeat. Beautiful, beautiful steaks. Of course, I know some people watch and they say, that's a lot of seasoning. But when you're looking at a 22 ounce to almost 24-ounce ribeye steak, I mean that steak can definitely take a little bit of extra seasoning. Of course, you want the meat flavor to come through, but salt and pepper. I mean, I think those are the fundamental benchmarks for flavoring, especially when you start talking about grilling on a grill. Of course, when you're grilling, the meat is going to be sweating and some of those flavors are going to be leaving. So here what we're doing is we're moving to the grill. Those steaks have been smoked for about 45 minutes to an internal temperature of about 125, 130. And we're going to put them on my new green egg, my acorn. And we're going to go ahead and get a nice clean sear on these. Get the internal temperature up to around 130. And then they will be perfectly medium rare and ready to cook. We're using charcoal here. Lump charcoal briquettes. What I try to do here is use the constant flip method. This method, you can have the grill right now is around 550 degrees. So what you want to do is you don't really want to leave the meat too stagnant in one position, especially with the flame. You want to make sure you're constantly flipping, constantly moving that meat, getting an even sear on both sides of the steaks. What I did notice here as well, and something I learned with the new dry age process, is the dry age meat is a little, again, with the dry aging process, what you're doing is you're separating the water and the moisture out of the meat. So when we started doing the sear on the dry age meat, it was searing up very, very, very quickly. And I think that's because of the reduction of the moisture inside of the meat. So those, you might not have to leave on the actual grill itself for too long. That's my trusty thermopin right there. Just making sure that my internal temperature is coming up right around 130, 135 for that perfect medium rare. That nice pink inside, nice juice. Of course, we'll let these steaks rest when they come off, but we're just trying to get the internal temperature up to around 130, 135, and get them situated. Just double checking again, making sure we're right where we want to be. Once we're at around 130, 135, we know we're good to go. We're perfect. Again, first three steaks to come off were the dry aged. Again, those steaks, with the moisture being pulled out of them, they were just ready a little bit quicker than the regular prime ribeye steaks. Trying to make sure I didn't mix them up here. I'm like, okay, let me make sure I don't have the ribeyes with the wrong ones, the aged with the non-aged. So, mind you, that this grill right here is very, very, very hot. Just checking again, making sure my internal temperatures are correct, and we'll go to the cutting board. So the first three steaks, if you see from left to right, what we have is we have the dry aged, perfectly cooked, warm pink inside. The outside is seared perfectly. Just making some nice cuts here, kind of displaying the meat. Wonderful, wonderful, beautiful. I think next time I'll use two cutting boards. I had a lot of steak. Absolutely wonderful. Each one of these steaks was beautiful, came out perfect. The resting period, I let them rest around 15 minutes before we went ahead and did the cutting. That's just to make sure that those juices can go ahead and re-render back inside the steak. And when you're cutting the steak, you're not leaving, most of your juice on the cutting board instead of in the actual meat itself. But if you take a look at that, I mean, it's just wonderful. Nice pink inside, warm. The outside is nice seared crust on it. And mind you, again, we didn't use a lot of seasonings. We just used, salt, pepper, and a little bit of garlic salt on the regular prime rib. Perfect middle. Beautiful. Well, thanks everyone for watching the video. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram. We're also on Facebook as well, Boss Hog Cooking. Hope you enjoyed the video and everybody have a great day. Thank you.